welcome back to another episode of Relative Pitch. I'm Lauren Green, joined by my lovely co-hosts Anthony Morris and Michael Brown. And so, first thing I just want to start off by saying, we're all from Georgia. We went to school very close to Atlanta. The shooting that happened within Atlanta it'll be this past week whenever this episode releases, was just disgusting to see. And there's so many different layers of hate and prejudice within that shooting that happened. What was your reactions to this hate crime that happened in Atlanta?
I thought it was awful on so many different levels. I also thought it was partly awful because there was traction before that incident of Asian hate crimes happening all over the country that were not spoken about properly. I would say that. Let's say properly. Because if they were not saying, it would have mitigated the fact that he still would have done this, because you can't obviously look into the future and try to stop somebody, but it would have brought more awareness where they might have been more not prepared, because you can't be prepared for this type of situation. Someone walked in and decided their will. It almost reminds me of that whole couple of years ago where there was a school shooting every other week. It's like, why would I still cannot understand why people do this. And it's just disgusting. And it just makes me, it's like curdled milk in my soul.
Yeah. And, before I know Anthony wanted to speak on it, with our interview with Professor Todd Wedge we have later on, we don't speak about it during it, but we definitely all, being from that area, commented on how just disgusting it was, and the different layers. And he spoke specifically about the hatred towards sex workers, I believe, was one of the things that it bothered him to no end. Anthony, what were your thoughts?
So my biggest thought from this was tragic and disgusting, and I don't think it got enough coverage from the media. I heard about this from the Everything Georgia Twitter account before I heard it from CNN, Fox, from any source like that. So the fact that I had to hear it from somewhere, and literally in the tweet it said, "We are going to say this right here because it's not going to get main traction." Mind you, the guy has killed over, I think it was 6 to 8 people.
Yeah.
It was 8.
8 Asian people, and yet it's not getting this traction. But here's my thing, and I'll be the first one. I'm gonna bring it back to race, because this didn't get traction just in case it was something bigger. Now, if it was a black person or a person of color, it would have been the front page of the news. Let's go back a couple months ago to the Nashville bombing. We didn't know who that man was for a very long time, and then when we found out who it was a white man, of course. It was only there for what, 2 days, and then barely 2 days. Oh, and let's keep going back a couple years ago with the bombing of the AME Church in Charleston. And also, I was trying to pull up before I said anything about where the Cherokee County, mind you, Cherokee County is where I student taught, by the way.
All right.
So I know that area very well. For the Cherokee County police commissioner, whatever his title is, to basically say, oh, he was having a bad day and he made some bad choices. He killed 8 people. A bad day?
When I have a bad day, I may swear, I may, have a cheat night, I may have a beverage or two, a libation. I will not kill anyone. I don't think any sane person and say, I'm having a really bad day, I'm going to go murder somebody. This apologist attitude for these white terrorists, I said what I said, white terrorists, white supremacists, needs to end. And the reason why it's continuing is the people who they have in positions of power.
Absolutely.
I'm sick of it. And this has been a conversation that we've been having for a while. It's been something that continues to come up all last summer. George Floyd, police brutality protests, with Black Lives Matter, everything. This is what we're talking about, and it continues as we see it after all the protests, all the marches, all the petitions, everything that we did that concentrated summer. It is still happening, and it's happening because no one is changing anything up top. You have to knock them out at the head, and they're still there. And Lil Baby, I'm sure people watch the Grammys. Lil Baby had this amazing performance where he addressed police brutality. He spoke about Black Lives Matter, or it was just a really cool way that they chose to encapsulate everything. And I want whenever I first saw it, I was like, this is dope. I wonder what they're gonna say. I wonder what the other side's gonna say about this. Or, oh, they're politicizing the Grammys now and they're pushing these leftist agendas and everything. I mean, did you guys, were you on Twitter when everything was happening and like live streaming?
I watched. Oh wait, Anthony.
Well, I was just gonna say the Twitter that I'm on. Come on now, like we were like, this is it, this is the thing. Also, I went back and I rewatched because I didn't watch the Grammys live, so I went back and rewatched it, and I loved the performance. And
Yes.
also, I think we need to talk about one day on the show about conscious rap because I think a lot of people don't talk about conscious rap, and basically, conscious rap is rap that has a meaning that is a social justice meaning. You can, this song, if you're an old rap lover, Queen Latifah, UNITY, which is talking about women's rights, feminism, and everything back in the 90s. So conscious rap is a big thing. And for Lil Baby, who is a current rapper right now, to really be influenced. And he's from Atlanta. So last summer, he was around with all of the protests and the riots that were going on downtown. And he even said in many interviews is that he would saw his friends, he saw his family all going out to these protests and how that really affected him. And he went in and he wrote this song, and he thought it was not going to get played or anything, and it ended up being nominated for some Grammys. And then they asked him to perform. So that was a big thing, especially to be portrayed at the Grammys. And I thought he did a fantastic time. It told a story. One image that gave me goosebumps is that he was rapping right in front of the guards, just like how they were in Atlanta with the shields, and he was right in front of their face. Like that image will always be in my head. It was just very such a fantastic performance.
I will say I didn't watch the Grammys live because I've never been a huge Grammys person. Partly because I am now also Nicki Minaj hasn't won a Grammy, so I don't care about the Grammys anymore. But to this Grammy performance, he is an amazing rapper. I have been studying specifically Atlanta rap, as Anthony and Lauren know, this whole semester, and I could tell he was an Atlanta rapper just by his beat. He pays true to tradition of the Atlanta beat, and he's obviously changing it. He's a conscious rapper, as Anthony said, which has been another theme of Atlanta rappers from Goody Mob and Outkast. Like, this is something that is true to Atlanta, and Atlanta has been amazingly real about it from the conception of Dirty South rap. And I will say, like, his performance was the best, and I will keyboard fight anybody, because that's the thing now. Keyboard fight anybody about that, because I will say the Grammys choreography this year sucked. It was horrible. It was some of the worst. I could do better, and I am a slightly overweight man, only slightly, and I could do better than half of these people. But his performance was amazing, and when you saw the Wendy's, you were like, yes, this is Atlanta, and he is staying true to his roots and bringing Atlanta back to like the popular culture scene, which was another thing about Dirty South rap.
Yeah, I think Atlanta, the reason why Atlanta rappers, we're talking about conscious rap right now. I'm sure we'll have another episode on it, but Atlanta is so crazy. Like we know this from living there, the amount of change a city can go through within a year. Miss Stacy, we talking about you, man.
Right. And also like Atlanta, and I was explaining this to Michael because like for me, the way I grew up in the R&B rap community. So it was like I remember Atlanta, even though people look at it as diverse as it is now, it was not like that.
No.
20 years ago. It was nothing like that. So the fact that it is kind of had this change and it's been growing with the culture. And
Yeah.
now Atlanta is honestly one of my favorite places. I love going back to Atlanta. You go there, you see so much like black culture in Atlanta. It is proud, it is free, it is there.
Yeah.
Whenever you do something that upsets us, we are going to let you know.
Yes.
We are going to let our
Bang.
voice be heard. Right. Like, I mean, to think that not only just Atlanta, but Georgia in general. Like the Georgia, I mean, none of us here are from Atlanta. We always call Atlanta our chosen home because that's where we ended up being. But Georgia in general have kind of found its voice, especially with our generation and the generation right above us have found that voice.
Yes.
And it I love how Atlanta has aligned themselves in the rap community. Atlanta
Yep.
is known for music, and
Yes.
it is so both classical music, rap music, country music, all of these different
Everything.
things.
It's all.
Atlanta has it all. So whenever people be like, "Oh, the South," this no, Atlanta's different.
Yeah.
And do not do, and this is one thing, people who do not like the South, and I understand the premise about it, the history and stuff,
We all
you
do.
have to look at Atlanta and other major capitals that are doing, you have to look at them because like it's not decided by these huge states. Like you take Georgia as a whole, maybe we're a little risky.
Right.
You take Atlanta, we
Right.
they will stand behind you if they believe in you.
Atlanta and the metro Atlanta
All
area,
the
like
big cities. Big
it,
cities
it
are the
is
hubs of progression.
Atlanta is my favorite. I
Yeah.
love it. I will always, I will always represent Atlanta.
So going back to like what Michael's, first of all, Michael, who are you talking about with bad choreography with the Grammys? Because
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be real. You can hate me if you want to. Cardi B's WAP was horrible.
and then was it? It wasn't WAP. It was.
No, her
No,
choreography was bad.
It was because she started with Up,
Up.
and
She
she
started
did
with
WAP.
Up.
Now
Yeah,
And
that was
I would
bad.
say,
I
I would
hated
say,
the choreo for Up.
okay, that's what I was gonna say. The Up choreography was horrible.
Now when she
WAP,
was doing the thing with this the screen and everything,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
cool.
With WAP's choreography, I thought it was way better. I don't know who choreographed Up, because that
It
was
was
just
bad.
bad.
It was
I think part of her performance that was bad was the costume. She could not move in it. She did not look comfortable
Yes, it was very stiff.
the entire even when she went to WAP, she
She
didn't
was
look comfortable.
walking in a look.
Megan
Also, the wig.
killed it.
Megan did. Well, I would say when Megan actually performed like Savage and all those, it was kind of a little stiff. I would say just
It
Yeah.
was,
but when she came in for WAP, obviously
She let it go.
was comfortable. And I took, let me just say this. I'm sick of this, and I'm just gonna say it right here. Number one, for all these people talking about, oh, so they gonna put this on for kids. First of all, your kids need to be in bed.
In bed. Put them in bed.
Bed.
In
Good
bed.
night.
And also, let's also talk about this. First of all, you know what the song was about. The song has probably been the most popular song of 2021 and the last of 2022. So please, ma'am, or sir, whoever you are, Karen's, Todd, whatever your name is, you need to know. You already knew what the song was about, and you knew what was going to happen. You have Cardi B, and you have Megan Thee Stallion.
Like
You knew what it was
the
going to be.
song. You knew they were gonna do it,
This ain't
right?
no Taylor Swift with her, just all her
Who
little-
did not deserve a Grammy?
Okay, hold on.
Nope.
I will have to say Evermore was a great album. All right. I'll give Taylor that one. Okay. That was a good one. Okay, Anthony.
No. I'm sorry. This is the second album she's stolen.
Okay, wait. Who else were album of the year? I know it's Harry Styles. Was
Well,
it
let me pull it up because there are some nominees that I think should
My
have.
internet's acting wonky, so y'all gonna have to say it out loud.
Yes,
I
okay.
mean,
Let
this
me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Oh, album.
But I will say I'm gonna talk about the Grammy performances. Like I love Bruno Mars' performance. I will put that out there. I just love the whole vibe he created. I love Megan Thee Stallion. I loved her like retro to like Hollywood glamour. She did seem a little stiff, but I love what she did. I like Harry Styles. I like this. I like the vibe that he created. But the choreography is Da Baby and Da Baby Boomers. That was so cute. That was so cute.
Rod Wave also did a great job on his. Dorisha Kitty, that's my girl. Doja Cat would say so. Also, I think she should have definitely won a Grammy because who was not listening to Say So and not doing the TikTok dance? But
not the TikTok dance.
For album of the year, was Taylor Swift Folklore. Actually, now that I look at who was all nominated for album of the year,
that's what I'm saying.
Who was nominated? That's what I'm saying.
So Taylor Swift Folklore, Jhené Aiko, Chilombo, Black Pumas, Coldplay, Everyday Life, Jacob Collier, Jesse Volume 3, Haim, Women in Music Part 3, Dula Peep.
That was a good album.
She won Best Pop Vocal. Like I think pop album. So she got hers. She got hers.
Also have to realize who's doing the voting for album of the year.
Right.
I want to know who's doing the voting, period.
Okay. So
it's the council, you know.
Yeah, it's the council of who is and the recording artist. So I think they follow something similar to, I might be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. I think they follow something very similar to the Academy Awards. That if you have won the award in this category, you now have a voting in the category. So people who've already won album of the year vote for album of the year. And honestly, looking at all of the nominees, I don't disagree because I'm sorry, the rest of these people.
Dua Lipa's album was pretty good.
But Dua Lipa already got an award. She got a different one. She got it for Best Pop.
Album or just song?
Pop album.
Pop album. But and okay, so let's just go through these really quickly. Record of the year went to Billie Eilish. I personally don't agree with that one. And look, I love me some Billie Eilish. However, in the other songs that were in the category, so whereas Beyonce's Black Parade, Black Puma's Colors, The Baby featuring Roddy Ricch, Rockstar, Doja Cat, Say So, Dula Peep, Don't Start Now, Post Malone Circles, or Savage by Megan Thee Stallion.
It was a lot.
I personally can I just say this, that this year's they had a lot of songs in the category.
A lot.
Usually they cap it off at 5, but they had like 8 or 9, and I was like, whoa. But in that case, I honestly think Say So should have went with.
No, she should have, because she did dominate the pop charts with that song.
Really. Also, I agree. Song of the year. She won with I Can't Breathe. And people have to realize when they say Song of the Year, what they're looking at is writers, okay?
Right.
So when they do Song of the Year, and if you watch it, it'll say who wrote it. So if you have like 10 people who is credited as writing the song, most likely you're not going to win that category.
Right.
And so her wrote the song. Her best friend, which is also an artist, and one more person, they all wrote the song, and it's entitled I Can't Breathe, which is really her story about all of the things that happened last summer. And it very does touch it. So I totally agree with that. But let us know what y'all think about some of these categories.
With the Grammy results. I mean, it's, there are some people who absolutely do deserve Grammys who do not have. It's the same thing with how Leonardo DiCaprio just won his, or it not just one, it's been a few years now, but it took him that long after playing in Titanic, Romeo and Juliet, Wolf of Wall Street, Inception. I'm like, come on, like, give this man a Grammy. I mean, Oscar.
Nas, famous as Nas is in the rap community, just won a Grammy this year.
Right.
Nas is looked at as probably the top 5 rappers ever.
Right.
And he just won a Grammy.
I mean, The Weeknd also, I mean, we know The Weeknd is kind of anti-Grammy now, because of, and so is Nicki Minaj, which it's crazy because, Blinding Lights, honestly, Nicki Minaj super, like, she owned middle school for
the 2010s.
Owned it. It was
her features on all the Young Money stuff made half of those songs.
She was.
Now, who won the gospel album of the year?
It wasn't the gospel. It was the contemporary Christian album, which
Contemporary Christian album of the year.
which went to Kanye West.
Oh yeah. Is it the what is his? Yeah. Yes.
Let me go to real quick.
We knew he was
When
in that.
I saw this, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Say that again. Say that again. Kanye West.
Jesus is King, I believe, is
Yeah,
the album's name.
yeah, Jesus is King. Yeah. I mean, we knew that. When I looked at the category, I don't think I really recognized too many besides him. And I was like, that's exactly where they're going to go off
I
of.
mean, but I mean, everyone knows Hillsong.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Hillsong United. Yeah. People do know. Yeah.
mean, I don't know these other people. Cody Carnes, we the Kingdom, but really, like Kanye though, I am very confused on
It's,
that one.
you
But
know,
also, before we even go on anything else about the Grammys, we have to talk about my girl Beyonce becoming the most awarded female artist and artist and
or
singer
a singer.
singer in general to have that many awards. She now has 28 Grammys,
Yep.
which is the second overall. The first one is actually a classical conductor, George Solti, and
Which
he
we'll
has
talk about that later.
31.
Yeah.
Um, but still, Beyonce, like, first of all, everyone knows Beyonce.
Yes.
Everyone knows her. And I mean, I remember her first Grammy, okay? Her first Grammy was with Destiny's Child, and I remember the outfit. It was this little cute little purple. It was real cute. Like I'm a Beyonce stan. I could tell you anything and everything you wanted to know. So I'm just happy for her. And she also won 3 Grammys at the Grammy night. Also, Blue Ivy won her first Grammy, becoming tied with the
Second youngest.
the second youngest ever to have a Grammy. So congrats to the Knowles Carter family. It was really good.
Yeah. I mean, and going back just one split second, just something I saw crazy on Twitter that, is the people we all know. Okay. So the Dr. Seuss Foundation or whoever owned all his rights and everything decided to pull some books from their catalog that included very racist images and character like portrayals of African Americans and Asian Americans or Asians in general. And so this is a decision by the company and said, you know what, we live in a different time and we can't do this anymore. And by us leaving it up there, it's still saying that we're allowing it to happen. So they decided to pull that. And there were some people on a certain side of the political spectrum who had a problem with this and honestly compared it to the Megan Thee Stallion Cardi B WAP Grammy performance. Now, I just want to say Dr. Seuss book, first of all, it was all books that I had never heard of anyway. And so obviously these weren't popular in the first place, but these are meant for children, right? So this is here, children, listen, and this is your area. Megan Thee Stallion Cardi B, yeah, I would say WAP isn't for kids. I would say you should, as a parent, you should know how to separate things your kids sees and what they don't see. Now, if you let them do whatever on their phones, that's your fault. Know how to do parental settings, but you cannot,
children.
right, and parent your child. But you comparing something that was meant for kids with something that wasn't meant for kids, you sound, first of all, you just sound stupid. You sound foolish. You're comparing apples and oranges, and it's just any one thing. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B are the worst things that ever happened to women and feminism and everything. First of all, the fact that women, it's like if you're comfortable in your own skin and you're not afraid to show it, because yeah, back in the day, like what I'm wearing right now, showing all this, I'd be called a harlot. I have an A written on, is it the A? Yeah, the burning A on my chest or whatever. Time changes. We are living a different time. So hey, grow up. Like just grow up.
Professor Wedge talks about it a little bit later in the episode about sexuality. When you are comfortable in your sexuality, you are looked at like you are just the worst thing in the world. Like you're just human, and it's like we're human, number one, and number one, when I'm comfortable in my skin, if that offends you, good.
Right. I'm not here to make you comfortable.
I'm not here to be. I think
that.
that we need to coin that. Dr. William Lake, he was on here a couple episodes ago. That is our motto for the whole freaking year. And
Well,
here it is. Here at Relative Pitch, we are not here to make you comfortable. Period.
Let's put it on a shirt, coin it. It's ours.
for the people who didn't like the WAP performance, I want you to look up City Girls Twerk.
Ooh.
If you want to see some choreography that'll make you uncomfortable, go see what Miami has to offer.
It doesn't even make you uncomfortable, first of all. But if it does, again, I'm gonna just say it. Grow up.
And let me just read you this tweet. While people always are asking about rappers and what they got to talk about. So in 1977, Eric Clapton sang a song called Cocaine.
Yes.
The song was about cocaine. The chorus of the song was just the word cocaine.
Okay.
The gist of the song is, if you want to make friends and have a good time, use cocaine. Anyway, what rap song are we complaining about today?
Period. They say we're such snowflakes, and they act as if it was only like just purity culture back in their times.
Wasn't. I pulled many songs. Many songs.
Quite a lot of songs actually. But anyway, y'all will hear us talk a little bit more about the Grammys and other things that happen on later in the interview with Professor Todd Wedge. So I think we should segue over to that now.
Today we have the pleasure of having Professor Todd Wedge. He is my personal voice teacher for 4 years. I love him to death. So hello, Professor Wedge. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. I'm excited to talk with you guys.
Yes, we're so excited for you to be here. So first and foremost, we always ask, please give us a little bio about yourself. Where did you come from? Where are the schools? How did you get where you are now? Some interesting things. We love the good tea around here. So please, please, please let us know.
Okay, so I grew up a wee little lad in a city called Port Huron, Michigan, which is right above Detroit. And I actually, my music career sort of started in 5th grade on the trombone. And it was the trombone because my uncle had one in his closet and it was free. So that's what I played. And so I played that. And so I grew up an instrumentalist, actually. Believe it or not, we didn't have choir in my middle school or my high school. So like the cheapest fine art there is. And we didn't have it. So my singing kind of happened through the church. And then my brother was classically trained with this sweet little lady down the street, and he had a beautiful voice. And so I kind of, every little kid wants to be like their older sibling. And so I kind of followed suit. And soon, so I was at Interlochen, the summer program there. I went there every summer. And I was actually singing, I think it was in the shower or something like that. And one of the teachers overheard me and said, "Are you really good at the trombone?" And I said, "No." I mean, I'm good enough to be in like the middle. I was never first chair at Interlochen, but and he said, "Well, why don't you come sing for me and meet me at this time?" So I went in this room and I sang for him. And he said, I don't know how good you are at trombone, but you could probably go a lot further in this music world if you were to sing. And so then I kind of started taking lessons, and really, that was my cup of tea, the languages. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up in musical theater. I loved musical theater like a lot of us did, but I loved classical singing. I loved the classical singing. And I said to myself, I said to my voice teacher, as dumb as this statement sounds, I really wish that musical theater was using more classical singing all the time. And I wish that there weren't words, because I don't like to speak on stage. And she said, "Well, there's a thing."
Hold on. And opera.
Yeah, and so I did hold on to the trombone. I was planning on going to college as a double major in trombone and voice. The schools that I got in for voice were wonderful. The schools that I got in for trombone were next to zero. So that was pretty much where I was going there. And to be honest, I sort of knew I really kind of did that because I wanted my trombone teacher, who'd been with me for 7 years, I will, but I still have it. So Mr. Clark, it's out there. I have it. I still have my instrument. So then I went to Oberlin Conservatory, which was really, really wonderful. I had incredible teachers there, and a wonderful experience. And that's where my teaching kind of started, actually, officially. I was my work study job was actually to help kids in schools learn to read. They were having reading troubles. So a lot of the kids were non-English speakers. So I got that experience. And so a lot of my teaching experience really kind of came up from no training, nothing, just throw them into the wolves. And regardless of how much training you ever have, you're going to be thrown to the wolves at some point. You do have to figure a lot of it out on your own eventually.
Absolutely.
So, so yeah, after that, I couldn't decide if I wanted to be a music ed or performance. And I thought I'd figure it out my sophomore year. Sophomore year rolls around, still can't figure it out. So I said, okay, we're just going to do both of these. And so I ended up getting both degrees. And then I went to Northwestern right away because I felt that my music ed, that's such an intense program. And my music ed experience, which is what I say to my students, I understand what you're going through. I know how much work it is. It's one of the hardest majors I think you can have, because you're also still being expected to be a performance major.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? You're in all the same ensembles, you're putting in all the same amount of time. And Anthony knows that being in my studio, I don't teach anyone different. I only know how to teach one way. And so it's a lot of work. So I felt that I didn't really get a chance to kind of dig in as much as I would have liked to. So I went to performance. I got a master's in performance from Northwestern University School of Music. From there, I actually finished Northwestern just a touch early to be with Chicago Opera Theater, where I was a young artist there. And that was amazing. That was my first professional opera kind of gigs. And shortly, and I also, out of the blue, that I also was contacted by the University of Notre Dame. They had a teacher, very, very unfortunately, in a horrible car accident, like a week before school started. So they called my teacher at Northwestern and said, do you have anybody that can teach and can, do specifically vocal pedagogy? And so my teachers there knew that was my thing, and that's what I loved. So I was actually, my first teaching job in a school was actually University of Notre Dame.
Wow.
And I had this beautiful studio, and it was just a lovely, lovely first gig. It really spoiled me. And then the recession hit, the first one. And so as a young artist, you're auditioning everywhere, and you're trying to get yourself out there. And I was really fortunate. I had I was having a lot of good luck getting contracts and stuff. But when the recession hit, a lot of us got called and said, we don't know if we can really honor that because we're having to make huge cutbacks. So of course, a young artist program is going to be something that, is probably going to be cut because it's expensive. So from there, I saw the world of performing in opera and things like that, kind of, wasn't sure where that was going. And I found out about the Chanticleer audition, and I thought, well, this is steady, and this would allow me to go around the world and get paid and have health insurance. And I think I was like 24, 25 at this time. So there's no better time to do it. But I thought there's no way they would want my voice. I wasn't trained as a chorister. I'd really only been in 2 choirs at that point in my life. And it turns out that year they were looking to replace about, I think, 8 or 9 singers that year. They replaced most of the ensemble. And the goal was to make kind of a thicker sound so that they could do more repertoire into the Strauss or the romantic repertoire. And so that was his thinking there. And so we all came in, and we were all soloists. And it was kind of been really interesting to put all these soloists in a room and figure out how to sound like Chanticleer. And but it was great. It was a wonderful time. I had the greatest 3 years of some of the best years of my life. Absolutely, getting to travel around. I pretty much am proud to say I've sung on pretty much every major stage, and not as a soloist, but my feet have touched those stages. Yes, so it counts. Yes, and I've been all in. So I got to do that, and then after that, I was finding that when I was spending time like in Vienna, and we were working with the Vienna Boys Choir, for example, I was more excited to work with the boys choir than I was to do the concert that night in the Musikverein, which is, the greatest place in the world to sing. But I found I was starting to yearn I was wanting to teach, and I was sort of their go-to teacher. I was like the master class person and all that. And I just missed it and I wanted to get back in. So I started looking around for high school jobs, and I ended up with 2 positions. One was at a very, very well-known, I will not say the name, but a very expensive, well-known school in La Jolla, California, where my office, they showed me, had a window overlooking the ocean. And as I was in that room, I'm not even kidding, like a pot of dolphins swam by. I mean, there might as well have been a rainbow. It was like all signs point to take this job. And then the next day, I was these like 3 days off that I had in Chanticleer, because you can't just leave, as you know. So I had these 3 days off, and then the next day I had an interview with the San Francisco public school system. I walked into the school, graffiti everywhere, lockers missing, dirty, trash. I saw a rat walk down the hall. I feel bad that I'm saying this, but this was the truth, and it's gotten a lot better since then. But a really rough situation. And so, of course, I'm thinking, okay, I have 2 choices here. So I walked into this room of students that lacked discipline and lacked focus. And this was the San Francisco School of the Arts. So I was really quite shocked that at the level they were at, considering it's a school of the arts. And I thought, this is a gold mine. This is a gold mine. And this might just very well be one of my life's work. You know what I mean? And so I sat in front of these kids, and all different colors from all different parts of the world. And just the day before, I was in a room with a lot of really, really, really wealthy white kids. And I looked and I said, okay, the choice is clear. I'm going to go for the harder option. And so we started, I think that when I walked in that fall, that program, we started off with about 31 singers. I was there for 6 years and built that program, and it became, we left with 127 singers. We split the program into, it had 3 different majors. It had classical, musical theater, and jazz. A full theory program, theory 1 through 4. So you should be finished with AP theory your junior year. Language art song labs. So you'd have 12 language art songs finished by your senior year. So you have a portfolio. We had an opera scenes component unit, and we did about roughly 12 concerts a year. It was my first gig, and I could have bit something smaller, but I just went for it. And so now those kids are now all over the world. They're one of them just made her debut at Stuttgart Opera as third lady. They're all over there, then it's amazing. So I more than anything, I'm so proud that we've got good musicians out there. You know what I mean? That kind of because my whole thing with teaching, and I know it sounds so corny, it really, really does, but I owe everything to my fifth, 6th grade band teacher. If I hadn't shown up at the right place at the right time, I would probably be a dental hygienist somewhere in Michigan. I don't know. I don't even want to know. So I was so lucky. So I truly do mean it when I say I wanted to make myself available so that people could also be at the right place at the right time with me. Because I've been way too lucky. I got way too lucky. So I want to make sure that I can, pay it forward. It's important. And so that's, okay. And then, so my friend, after 6 years, I was finding again that I was looking forward more to my private studio of my students. And I was so proud of them as they were going through the world and doing great things. And this is really what I want to just focus on this. And I had a good friend who used to teach at KSU, Leah Partridge, who is a fabulous soprano in Atlanta. If you don't know her, Google her immediately. Leah Partridge.
Need to know her.
Everyone must know her. She's she just sang in Naples, Florida. They did an amphitheater kind of thing. Did you see an app? Okay, great. Yeah. So so she's amazing. And so she said, you should apply for this job, and it would be great to have you. And voila, I came to KSU 6 years ago, and I'm still there, teaching wonderful people like you. And so that's pretty much, it's a long one, but that's my story. It's been a packed 40 years. It's been a very packed 40 years.
So how was Anthony as a student? Was he did he show up on time? Did he learn his songs?
He was way better than I was, I can tell you that.
Anthony was probably the worst student I have ever had.
I knew it. I
I
knew
knew,
it.
I
Probably.
knew that. I felt it.
I mean,
felt that.
just a mess. You know, disorganized, late, never
Yeah,
prepared.
me and Lauren had to fix him with you.
I know we had to do an intervention.
It takes
Yeah.
a village. It takes a village.
I mean, the fact that he's teaching students is
Oh.
terrifying. Terrifying.
Ow. Ow.
I mean, I guess he can show them what not to do.
You know, I'm
But,
leaving this. I'm leaving the meeting. Goodbye. Goodbye.
And I love that your goodbye is a picture of Lauren.
It's a picture of Lauren.
We can't get enough of Lauren. She's
Oh,
gorgeous.
Lordy.
Oh my gosh.
Anthony, the running joke was that you know, we should just let Anthony run things. Just give everything to Anthony. And I think Anthony got that a lot at school. You know, with the golden rule, you want something done, find the busiest person in the room. And so, you know, we could always rely on Anthony. Anthony was always, and you know, Anthony came to me. I still have his headshot in his high school headshot, by the way, in the studio. I'm sorry we couldn't do it there because that is a precious photo.
You can
But,
email it and we can share it with the public.
He auditioned. I mean, I can just tell you about his audition. We all remember. Shirt was pressed, tie was tight, everything was perfect. Came in with his resume looking better than everybody else's in the room. With you know, just down, and so Anthony was always ahead of the game. Anthony's obviously going to be an amazing teacher. I miss him. I miss our chats.
Yeah.
And Anthony was primo. We know he's going to be on for huge things. We got our eyes on Mr. Morris there.
Oh.
Make him like supreme control of the world. I think
I
it's gonna
mean,
be his
Anthony for president. I think a lot of things will be figured out very quickly.
No, I will be gray haired, gray everything, probably on my sixth sangria at midnight. Okay. Like, no, you don't want me to do that. But
I can be your vice president.
ooh, okay.
You don't want that.
No, but
You don't
y'all-
want that.
Nothing will be done.
I remember,
You know, I think
coming to you, and it
bring
was
in
like,
bring Dolly Parton. Have Dolly Parton be your vice president.
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Dolly,
Yeah.
why that amazing icon is not an ambassador, I don't know, because she needs to be going all over the world representing this country. You set Dolly Parton down in North Korea, and I bet you $5 he's gonna be like, nah, I didn't really need that nuclear stuff. I guess she's really cool. You know, nobody can not like her.
She is
And
so cool.
she bought us a vaccine, so come on.
Yeah.
Right.
She actually won a Grammy again this year, right? And like we'll get to the Grammys
Yeah, we're getting
also
to the
later
Grammys.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
33%.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh.
All right.
And so, we're talking about, undergrads and everything. So let's go back to your undergrad for a second, Oberlin.
Mhm.
Have you seen any fun headlines lately concerning
school?
Oberlin?
That school's always making headlines. Oberlin is a funny, it's a funny place. If you don't like being politically correct, that is not the school for you. It is sort of, it really likes to challenge ideas a lot. And Oberlin has Oberlin was the first college to admit African-American students. Oberlin was breaking rules all over the place and always has. There are dorms without a dress code. I mean, it's it's Oberlin. Yes, I've seen the headlines, and this is so which specifically would you like me to comment on?
The fun one that has the celebration of Black artistry with all of our Caucasian friends adorning the flyer for it.
I was one of the first groups of people to see that, and my husband was sitting right next to me, and we looked at it and we said,
"Oh no."
No, I actually thought, at first I thought maybe is this a joke? I mean, you needed
like
sunglasses. You needed sunglasses to look at those presenters. They were so transparently white. And I know some of them, you know what I mean? I do, you do. They were so, and how something like that can get through, and I don't care how innocent a mistake it might have been, how can you not look at that and say something's awry here? Especially, and you know, the big bummer there is that, I mean, it could have just been retitled or something like that. That's fine. But the incredible wealth of Black geniuses in that conservatory. I mean, Wendell Logan, for God's sake. I mean, he's retired, but I'm sure if he's still with us, you know, that would have been a perfect person. You know, it's a school chock full of brilliant people of color, and so.
Yeah, when we saw it, I mean, the only person I knew from Oberlin was you, and so I was like, are there Black people at this school? Like, it was because when you say an artistry of Black artists, and they not one of them was Black, I was like, I know they have to have one Black.
It was Black History Month as well, so that was kind of like, come on.
It was Black History Month. It was like, I know there was somebody, and also not only Black students there, but I know there was somebody on the PR team before they even posted it. Like,
that's what I was shocked. I thought, okay, if they're not, unfortunately, gonna see that there's a problem there, surely the marketing team of the concert would stop this.
Say something. Yes.
Now, I believe Lauren sent it in our group chat because we were like, during that whole time, things were coming like this whole past year. And so, like, especially what happened over the summer stuff, we sent stuff in our group chat.
No, I'm looking something up. Please talk. Okay. I'm not texting everyone. I'm just I need to look something up real quick.
And Lauren sent that, and I dismissed it. I was like, that has to be a joke. Someone made a funny joke because you can easily crop in like squares. I was like, that's something she got off of Twitter. She's on a different form of Twitter than I am. It's a funny joke. And then when I came to find it was true, I was floored.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to just check on something because I believe, is the dean not a woman of color?
Oh,
I'm trying to look up their faculty and staff right now too.
Anything like this comes out, I'm just like, how did no one catch this? You don't even need a Black person on your PR team. You just need someone who has common sense, I think, to go, hey, this looks bad. This looks really bad.
Yeah.
Like, you might want to change this.
So I'm not, you'll have to check that out. I'm not sure, but I feel like when COVID was happening, I remember some kind of like a PSA sort of about what was going on. So, you know, Michael, if you wouldn't mind checking that, I'd be very curious to see if that's still the situation and what she
would have to say.
We might need, yeah.
It was just something, like there were a lot of like controversial things that were coming out around the same time. Like, we had the bassoon thing that happened with TMEA, which that's more on the instrumental side, but that was something that was big within the instrumental music community. And then we have this Tulsa opera thing. Anthony, you want to talk about that?
Have you heard anything what happened with literally, it was 18 hours ago, actually.
Oh, no, I don't know anything.
I'm gonna read you. It's by a Black or person of color artist. His name is Daniel Ruman. So this is what he said: Tulsa Opera just decommissioned me. I was invited to compose a work for them. They offered me $1,500 to create a new work for piano and voice, including any words I wanted to use. I wrote an aria called "They Still Want to Kill Us" on the race riots of 1921. I wrote the music and words. The last two lines are "God bless America, God damn America." Tobias Picker suggested I omit the word damn. I refused, explaining that this is how I felt about this country, so they fired me.
Fired him.
So the Tulsa, the whole purpose of that was that the Tulsa Opera was going to do a celebration or some type of
it was commemorating the
riots.
The Tulsa race riots,
And so this is what happened. And a lot of people were floored by this because here we go, and we'll talk about Mr. Levine later, but here we go with, uplifting somebody, and we know what's behind the stories. But this is something that is happening in the world right now. This is the struggles that is going on. This is how a whole group of feel about this country, and yet you don't want to put this on the forefront. And so it literally just came out, very sugarcoating it.
Well, especially after Lovecraft Country, right? Something that's very focused on all of that to be from Tulsa, and that's a poor choice, I think, you know. And look, when I was in Chanticleer, we commissioned a lot. You know, we commissioned a lot, and look, we got handed some stuff that was not necessarily, well, yeah, some of it was Gracie, but some stuff we didn't necessarily care for, but there was always an understanding that this is what we signed up for. We don't know what's coming. And, you know, there was some stuff that was pretty tough. I mean, like almost unsingable. But there was also some stuff that, you know, dug right in. And usually Joseph Jennings was the director then. And you know, you couldn't cross the line hard enough with Joe. I mean, he loved doing things that made people think. And that's really unfortunate, because that music needs to be heard. That story needs to be heard through that music. Right. And if we don't allow for that type of thing to be done on our stage, where's it going to happen? This is exactly the place that should be happening. Exactly. You know what I mean? This is exactly the point, because singing reinforces these words and allows you to hear color to these words. That just speaking it out loud doesn't do. Absolutely. And so you know, that's unfortunate. And especially Tulsa opera, which is when I think Tulsa opera, I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, where their Don Giovanni was a trans woman.
Oh, whoa.
Don Giovanni was a trans woman, and who lives in Germany. She's American, but she lives in Germany now. I'm so upset that I can't remember her name. But trained as a baritone her whole life, and then transitioned and decided, I'm going to be a baritone on stage and a woman the rest of my life. And so the first trans woman, I think, to ever sing a major role in an American opera house, not just any role, but Don Giovanni, like the Casanova, the biggest, butchest, like he's the man, you know. And so and she gave a thrilling performance, and it was really well reviewed. So it's interesting, right? That they would that would come from them.
It is very interesting. And also I think like it was going to be written for solo voice and piano. And I think works need to be written like that, because I can think of works that are written for concert band or a choir, like, yes, but when something as intimate as a voice and a piano. And I remember working with you, and we were trying to find pieces that really resonated that stuff. It was kind of hard to find. So
how sad is that, Anthony? Because had you access to that piece, you would have done it.
Exactly.
We would have done it. Yeah.
Exactly. And just knowing how hard it is to already find a piece that resonates, especially with what's going on right now, I think Tulsa, whoever is also in their PR team, should have been on it even more, because things like that need to be happening. And
there are Black singers that want to sing this music.
Exactly.
And there are all different kinds of people that want to sing this music. And there are audiences that need to hear this music.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Because sometimes when you get the message spoken to you so many times, you're like, okay, I got it. But then when you hear it sung to you, it resonates a different way, pun intended. Sure. And so we, I think that there's a lot of Black singers who are desperate to find repertoire that speaks to them, to the moment that they're living in, and can help them. You know, this is all about communication, and singing is communication. And one of the things we've got to do here is communicate. You know, this past year in particular, I think that I think a lot of people who are not Black really sat back and said, because for years we sit there and say, well, I'm not racist, I'm not racist, I'm not racist, I'm not racist. And then I think a lot of us learned that it's in you whether you know it or not. You know what I mean? And you start to learn these little things, you know what I mean? And so what we did, a positive thing to maybe come out of last year, is I think that a lot of people learned to listen more. And stop, just listen. That's it. Yeah. Like, for example, do you know that Black mothers have to sit their kids down and give them the talk, which isn't about the birds and the bees?
Just talking about that. Just talking about that.
You know what I mean? My story from that is I watch Grey's Anatomy. I'm one of those people. And there came a part of the episode where Bailey sat her child down and gave him the talk. And I literally went to Anthony's door because we were roommates. I was like, Anthony, is this like a thing? And he was like, yes, Michael. And I was like, that is messed up beyond belief. That is a thing still today. Also, side note is Lucia Lucas is that transgender baritone
Lucia.
that we were talking about. If you want to look her up, it's amazing. Yes.
Beautiful story. I gave you guys were at my trans singer lecture, right?
Yes.
I think I played her.
Yes.
We talked about it there. Yeah.
We talked about it. And we'll talk about a little bit later with LGBTQ inclusivity in music as well. So we'll definitely.
Yeah.
I want to say something just to cap off this Tulsa thing, and just how it looked to POC is going through Western classical music training. Most of the music I have encountered have been by dead European white men. And so, it gets to a point where you go, okay, I don't feel like I'm relating to this anymore. And, recently, I chose my next recital that I'm working on to be not pieces that I think people expect me to play, but pieces that speak to me personally. And I'm going to have a great experience playing them, and it's not going to feel like a chore. And so, we do need pieces like this, because to have someone like look at this music and go, I feel this, like, this is something that speaks to me, and to be able to perform that, we don't have a lot of those instances. We do not have a lot of those instances. And so whenever they commission projects over such sensitive topics like this, they have to learn how to be more understanding of, I don't know if they're worried about offending people or whatever, but again, and I'm going to keep saying every episode, I'm going to say it, I am not here to make you feel comfortable. Dr. William Lake, we'd love to see it. That's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And I mean, I think with the, with the events of last summer, like I said, I think we're all listening more. And two things I'll add to that. I think the day with the talk, for example, that was something that a lot of people didn't know about. And of course, I have a lot of friends on Facebook with mothers and fathers that are saying, at what age do we need to do this? It seems first it was 12, then it's 11, now it's 10, now it's 9, now it's first grade, but I think the thing that really sent a lightning bolt through my spine was when Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, was talking about everything that was going on and when the riots were happening. And she said her son, because of COVID, school was canceled, so he wanted to go with his friend to go, I don't know, play with his friend, go out with his friend. And I think he was a teenager. And she said, I had to say to my son, I'm sorry, but it's not safe for little black boys to go outside today. Mm-hmm. And the fact that there are a group of people who don't have to say that to their kids, and there's a group of people who do, right there. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. So the other thing I was going to say, well, in our vocal literature class we had last summer, I think I, like many professors, kind of tried to beef up what Black representation music I had in vocal lit, because as we were all mentioning, there's not a lot, but we do live in wonderful America, where we have the amazing, incredible American spiritual. And now that we could do a whole nother podcast on just that, and you should do it. No, you should do it. Oral Moses.
We have had him on, and we talked about gospel.
Oh, okay, good.
Like
So Oral, I mean, he came to class, and what was so beautiful was his saying, white people can sing this music. Yes, you can. This is a story that everyone needs to tell over and over and over and over again. If we all don't sing these tunes, we could lose them, and which is why, and it was a very big discussion about, should a choir, let's say in North Dakota, should they be singing spirituals in choir, or gospel or spirituals in choir? And I say, yes, maybe it's not going to be the Moses Hogan ensemble interpretation of it, but it tells stories, and song and spirituals were an active part of American history. They were maps, they were messages, you know what I mean? And we all need to know that story. And we all need to know these songs. You need to know where Wade in the Water came from. You need to know why Keep Your Lamps Trimmed and a Burning. You got to know all of that stuff. So, because it's a beautiful history, and it's a history that no other country has. And it's a style of music that no other country has. It's ours.
Exactly. It is ours.
And so, and I think one of the things that's been sad, and I talked with this with Oral, when I was in school, spirituals were on all over the recital stage.
Mhm.
Everyone was singing spirituals, you know what I mean? And I've seen a decline in that. And I don't really know why. And I've actually asked my former teacher and teachers all across, I said, are you seeing that students really aren't bringing these in as much anymore? Like, I'm not seeing the anthologies and Harriet Burleigh anthology, of course, we all know that one. That was a great place to start. And but so thankfully we have people like Anthony who did a lovely full set of spirituals. And I think that it was the most beautiful, I think it was some of the most beautiful music you sang on that. I think it was my favorite part. I'll say that. It was my favorite part.
It was my favorite. And that's, I've always said this, is that those, when I sang those spirituals, to me, it felt very true. And the reason is my parents or my grandparents, they never sang those specific spirituals, but the song, the melodies were very similar. And it just feels like something my ancestors would have done. And so whenever I sung those, and I remember Prayer, for instance, Prayer by H. Leslie Adams, that piece really,
oh yes, that was wonderful.
Every time I got to sing that piece, I had to always kind of remind myself, don't cry. Because it was, I was all, every time I performed that song, I was on the verge of just like breaking down because of how beautiful it was. The story it was telling, it was just so, just innately just beautiful. So those spirituals, they need to be out there. And the fact that after I sang Prayer, I had so many other students at KSU like, what is the name of that?
That piece.
Yes. I hear that song again. Like, where can I find it? I'm like,
that's what we want.
This is what we want. This is why I found that piece, and I was like, I need to do this piece. I definitely need to do this piece.
And when you see a student like you approach those pieces, and what's the most beautiful thing, and I know that we found your rep. You know what I mean? We found your rep is when you have a student that sings it differently every time. In a good way, not a bad way, but in a good way. You approached it differently every single time you sang it, which was why Brenda was your accompanist, right? Yeah, Brenda Brent, the fabulous Brenda Brent. She's incredible. But she would cry. She did cry. In our lesson, she cried because there was just a certain connectivity to it that transcends the beauty of the voice. It transcends. We're not listening to that anymore. We're listening to this level that you're at. You're on some plane with this music, and she cried almost every time you sang that.
Yes, even on the recital, she cried. I'm sure she did.
She's so wonderful. Yeah,
I love her.
So speaking about, Lucia Lucas, I believe, and, this pretty historical casting they chose, I kind of want to go back a little bit. It is Women's History Month for a little bit longer. And so I'm currently in a music, women and feminist thought class right now. And one of the topics I had to present on was actually women's roles in opera from the 18th century to now. And so one thing that was a huge thing that came up was, just how women were characterized and treated within operas. It's honestly pretty misogynistic viewpoints of women within operas. And I wanted to ask, you going through the trainings and seeing friends, colleagues prepare for these roles, are there conversations that are being, had about the way, do they approach it differently? We're talking about wanting change within operas and possibly the idea of seeing opera set in different lights. So have you been seeing this? Is this something that I think the community is wanting to see?
Yes. So my, I guess you could say, expertise, or I think what I'm most familiar about and what I study, I love Mozart history. I love Mozart. I love Mozart's history. And I'm very fascinated about Mozart's treatment of women. Because if you look at his operas, women are often heroines, or they are smarter than the men. But the big joke is on the men, because the men think that they're outsmarting the women, when in fact the women are always outsmarting the men. Mozart was a big lover of women, and he was, as far as we know, he was faithful to his wife, but he loved women, and he loved his wife dearly. He just adored her. So he had and she kept the house going. I think he was really, also he loved his mother very much. He had good women in his life, and I think he really respected women. I think he really did. if you look at certain examples, like there's always, well, let me just say this, there's always a story underneath that woman's story. So I think Mozart was kind of well, as we know, he was a rule breaker and he was innovative in a lot of ways. But his operas are certainly very much a part of that. They stirred people up. They, you know, the Nozze di Figaro did not get as much time on stage because you're talking about the monarchy and being philanderers and liars and all this stuff. That's not allowed. And but he did it anyway. And you know, his topic was, you know, I mean, Don Giovanni, for example, starts with a sexual assault. You know, I mean, that's how it starts. So he shows, I think, a lot of what women go through. I think he was one of the first people to do it, and in that new kind of way. Are you thinking of, Lauren, are you thinking of anything in specific when you're thinking romantic opera going into the 20th century?
I'm honestly just going to ask the question, why did Puccini hate women? Is what I want to know.
Puccini hate women. Why do you, what makes you ask that? And why?
So, you know, maybe it's not just Puccini, but, you know, within the chapter of the book that we use within this class, you know, they gave examples of how, women were just shown in this light of like, okay, the altos, you're the whores, you have the surprise, they have to die, the redemption of themselves at the end, like they have to die to almost, it's like a cleansing process. And so it's, you know, there are a lot of, I think, views you can look at it, and people have done the double-edged sword a lot when it comes to these roles of women, because it's also like, well, you're showing women on stage, you're putting them in this light of like, yeah, the heroine, but also why does the heroine have to die, you know? And then I feel it's like the whole, it also Carmen, you know, bringing in Carmen, now we have this lead, is she a mezzo or? Yes. Yeah, and so you have this very sultry, sensual woman who's just very much like, I am who I am, and she has to die though for it. You know, it couldn't be the happy ending, which, I mean, you know, some people say she had it coming with it, but you know, it's I guess like we're still progressing through, and while we're still having these now huge female lead, they're still shown in these lights. And so I guess the question is, how are modern day interpretations happening? Are they trying to embody a different idea with this, or what do you see that it's leaning towards?
Well, I think you're always going to have your traditionalists, right? So when you're looking at opera houses, fact of the matter is Carmen, Bohème, you know, all of those, they pay the bills. Okay.
Right.
And so people wanted, they are going to want to see Carmen die. They're going to want to see Mimi die. You know what I mean? Because that's how the story goes. Tosca throws herself off the cliff or off the ledge. You know, and opera's it's sex, drugs, rock and roll, and death. I mean, that's kind of what it is, you know, and it's what kind of fuels it. So, to be honest with you, Lauren, I would say that it has to do with how you pay your bills, and so that there's some traditional productions that simply are going to have to be that way, you know. Right. Now that you put it in my head, I'm really thinking like, God, they all do die, don't they?
They do. Madame Butterfly, you know, she's got
Butterfly, Violetta, yeah, Mimi, of course, yeah. So it's very interesting. That's a great, I you know, to be honest with you, I don't think I've really thought on that much. And so, but I can tell you this. So in terms of the shows, the way houses are going to run shows, they're going to have the traditional shows because they need to pay the bills. And then they'll have their experimental projects where they might do Don Giovanni in a modern setting, or, you know, and something like this. But, you know, you can't really rewrite the opera. Like Tosca has to die at the end. I mean, maybe you could do something different. That'd be cool to see. But just, really what they just change is the way that she ends up doing it. You know what I mean? So like, right. But I do think that opera needs to constantly be doing things like this in order to stay alive. And which is, you know, we were talking earlier about how I predict, and I hope I'm right, that a lot of houses are going to sort of reinvent and rethink and recalibrate, having had this break that we have during COVID, a lot of time to think about the future of their company and of what, what can change, how can they get new butts and seats, younger butts, butts and seats. That's what they need right now. So the boomers, I mean, bless them, we love them. But when they pass on, we need to have those seats filled. And there are people in my generation, I'm the next generation up, right? And we want to see things like that, Lauren. We want to see challenges. That's what me as an opera viewer, you know, I one of the greatest operas experiences I've had recently was actually when here in Atlanta Opera with Dead Man Walking, Jake Heggie. I mean, that opera, you want to talk about a hard topic? I mean, a man on death row who refuses to admit that he's guilty and forms a relationship with a nun. I mean, you know, so Jake Heggie, and that opera just left me. I went home and I like locked myself in the room and just thought, and then I went back the next night, and then I went back, and then I went back again, and was just one of those operas that I needed to see as many times as I could see it, because I loved it. I just loved it. I loved that challenge. So if there are people like me out there, Lauren, and there's bound to be, if there's one, there's bound to be two. If there's two, there's bound to be four. You know. But the thing is, everyone that watches, we have to go. We have to go to these performances. The biggest thing we can do is not just attend the traditional La Boheme, you know. We need to get ourselves into those experiences. So to not look, and we need to encourage people that, yes, I know that you don't know this piece of music, but you need to go because it's important, and here's why. And you also want to be there when history is made, you know, like, who knew if Dead Man Walking was going to be a thing, you know? So thankfully people can say now, I was there at the debut, and that thing was, now it's huge. It's like every opera house does it, you know? So I think that's, you know, I think that's the message, is that when these new directors are coming out with new ideas and new casting choices and young singers and singers that are, you know, from different backgrounds, we need to be there. We need to support them financially by buying tickets.
Yes, and I will let every opera person know, if y'all are listening to this, please schedule Agnaton. Please schedule Agnaton.
If you've never seen Agnaton by Philip Glass, it is, oh my gosh.
Do yourself a favor. This might be a good segue. Do yourself a favor, subscribe to Met On Demand, watch it multiple times. And then question why they don't pay their musicians.
And that's
okay. Before we get to that,
and the other thing is, I've been, you know, with some houses. Another thing that I know that people are doing is when people are doing works that are innovative or works specifically by people of color, involving people of color, and to what they're doing is they're calling companies and they're saying, is this going to be simulcast? If it's not, and sometimes they'll say no, and then so they'll say, if you simulcast it, I have like 200 people that I can tell you right now will pay a full price ticket to simulcast it. Because if I can't be in, Idaho, and they're doing something really, really cool, I want to give them my money though, and I want them to know that there's somebody out there in Georgia who wants to pay full price ticket to support and watch what's happening. And so, money speaks, money talks, right? Money is the driving factor. So when we, if you've got that extra money to kind of throw around, or you could just donate to something, $10, right? If you send a company a $10 check, and with it you say, I'm sending you this money because I know you're doing this project and I don't have a lot of money, but I'm going to send you $10 to let you know that somebody out there supports this and wants you to keep doing stuff like this. Money talks, even if it's $10, $5, you know what I mean? It's the message more than it is the dollar amount.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing whatever opera houses and all venues of classical music, what they're going to do, post-COVID, we'll say post-COVID. But going a little bit back into, your earlier life or everything, do you have a Grammy nomination? I thought I heard something in a little birdie said something about that.
So, Todd Wedge, no, when I was in Chanticleer, I think we were nominated 2 or maybe 3 times for CDs that we did. I think it was the Ann on Earth piece, which was like speaking of new works and really creative stuff, this was a mass set by all different composers from all different places all over the world. And so it was a really amazing project, and really cool music, and really took the setting of the mass and really stretched boundaries. And So that one, and then also there was a Christmas CD. It was like kind of like pops music. It was like kind of a pop big band, and so I think the third one was the Mexican Baroque. I think
you were like a semi-finalist for the.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, that. Okay, yes.
He forgot his own Grammy nomination. How do you forget your own?
I have so many.
He was so humble. He's so humble.
You're talking to somebody who can't find his keys half the time. I mean, look. Yeah, I was so that was a really sweet and like wonderful thing. I was nominated in the competition twice, and I made it to the semifinals one time for the Grammy. Also like has like a teacher of the year sort of thing that they do, and so that was a wonderful honor. No, I did not get the little thing. I wish I would have gotten something. I just wanted to have those GRAMMY somewhere behind me, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's wonderful, and I think that it's the Grammy Foundation is a wonderful thing that they do to really like get out there and show the teachers that are really trying to, mine was specifically about how I kind of took something and turned it into something, and something else. And so
this year's recipient of that award was actually an African-American man. He teaches.
It was, yes.
So like it is a very good thing. But I will also say the Grammys, we have our own topics about the Grammys we'll talk about later. But something that really came up is that Porgy and Bess from the Met actually won a Grammy, and so it kind of sparked a lot of conversation of, well, they just won a Grammy, it's popular, but those musicians haven't been paid in over almost a year now, which, I mean, as the classical musicians, we all think, oh my gosh, when you get to the Met, like you were just top notch, like everything, but these are musicians who have not been paid in almost a year. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, I don't know if there's a cash prize with winning. I think it's just a title.
I think it's just a title.
It's just a title. Yeah. So, you're still looking at houses that have no money to pay their singers, right? No butts in seats, no money. So, they will get residuals from that recording. That's for sure. And because that recording just won a Grammy, they'll probably get down. I know I bought that. I bought it. You don't have to try very hard to get me to listen to Eric Owens ever. So yeah, I think it's really scary right now is because there's a lot of amazing singers. I'm talking Met singers. I'm talking Covent Garden singers. I'm talking Houston, Chicago, San Francisco level A-list houses. People that have over the past year driving for Uber, getting a paralegal license, finding creative ways to keep themselves afloat. And it's hard to think that these divas that you are so accustomed to seeing, if you're not at that Renee Fleming level, you probably got another side gig this past year. You know what I mean? If you're not at that crazy level, I mean, because opera's glamorous and everything, but half of the time those jewels that you see are maybe $1.50, and the dress is probably a hand-me-down or a girlfriend. This isn't a lucrative career. It looks lucrative. It looks expensive.
The illusion.
It is an illusion, yes, and drag, if you will. It's sort of it's really sad to see people who should be, in my eyes and your eyes, I'm sure, millionaires because they're so great at what they do, and having to babysit, clean houses.
What I loved about the Grammys, once I started learning more about what the Grammys was and who was all included, at first I didn't know that they included classical, performances within the canon. And so
here's the gig though. That award ceremony is the day before.
Right.
There are no cameras.
I mean, we can talk about that too. How many people? Right. Which also, fun fact, do you know who has the most Grammys?
Yes.
Is it like New York or something?
George Solti. George Solti.
Beyonce.
I did not.
Beyonce.
I did not know that.
That makes sense.
For Chicago, did you connect Chicago? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So,
So
but
30
I thought that was interesting. Yeah. So like the crazy thing to me is like how we all know how important classical music used to be all we had, back, in America's time period. And just when it comes to what the Western, I'll call it, say the Western arts.
Well, it was pop
And
music back then.
right. It was the pop music. Absolutely. Yeah. And how it's now taken like a back or a backtrack now. But what's crazy is, yeah, we are still having amazing performances like coming from the Met. And for anyone, I think even non-musicians, the Met is huge. Like the Met, that's like Metropolitan Opera. Everyone knows about them. And I think it was just crazy seeing how they do have unpaid musicians. Like, I just don't understand how you have a Grammy award winning company and with like just like years and years of just crazy performances and amazing guest artists coming in, and you can't pay your musicians. It was very,
well, I mean, when you say
weird.
they can't pay the musicians, you mean like after the go into that a little
No,
bit.
not Grammy. No, we're not talking about like from the Grammy, because I don't think they get.
Oh, you're talking about like their the instrumentalists and the pit and all that. Right.
Like, yeah,
right.
They're like paid,
So
how they live.
A lot of smaller operas, like I know a trumpet player who plays in the Pittsburgh. They're doing a lot of small operas. They're trying to do something. Yeah, and they're doing like a lot of people, even New York Philharmonic, they released a brass concert. They're like just doing stuff that they like brought in Met brass musicians because you're not working, come over here. Like they're doing something to raise money. And Metropolitan was, I think, at one point the highest paid orchestra in the country.
Oh, for sure.
And they like the board couldn't like have a rainy day fund that could possibly like give them something over this time. And that's where I think that's my problem. Is the executive boards. We're seeing now some of the executive boards of these orchestras, operas, anything are not as efficient as others, where some are still being paid, some are doing 50%. That's still better than zero. And it's like Met was highly regarded and how they've been unemployed. Like Vienna Philharmonic wrote a letter to the Met. I think it went around Facebook. Like, this is such a travesty that the Met is such amazing musicians that everybody, even not in America, has looked up to, and not getting paid. Like, figure out something like brass quintet, little vocal quartets, do something and get some money flowing in, because that's better than none.
Yeah.
That's my problem with this whole situation.
You know what? The Met has an issue, and we're gonna segue.
We should have saw this coming.
Since we're talking about the Met, how could we not talk about the passing of James Levine? And if you don't know James Levine, he was a very big conductor. Everyone, or a lot of people, would say it's some of the best music the Met has ever done. Yada 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 yada. But he's also had a lot of skeletons in his past as well. Some sexual allegations to actually all of this has been confirmed, and we all knew it. And I think the Met and Boston Symphony Orchestra have kind of swept it under the rug. And I think all of us as classical musicians have heard some of those stories. And so my biggest question for all of us and for everyone that's listening, here we go, holding up to somebody up to being the king of everything, and then just kind of forget all of the misdeeds that they've done. And the article by I think it's the Boston Globe, did a very, very good write-up about James Levine. And Professor Wedge, what are your thoughts on his passing and the legacy that he left, and the Met and Boston kind of, sweeping things under the rug for over 20, 30 years?
Well, before we jump into that pool, let me just say one more thing about the Met, because it needs to be said on this show in particular, that we have to acknowledge that the Met had a historic moment last year when they brought back a production because it was way too popular. They didn't even know how to handle it. So that Porgy and Bess, and I don't know if you got, I don't know if you got to see, we had Janai Brugger, who was Clara in that. And she, so it was really fabulous to talk to her and say, what is it like when that curtain goes up and you're at the Met and it's a show that you can't get tickets to that Porgy and Bess if you tried. When it reprised, I had a student, right? I had a student, I had 50-minute lessons. It like started at 10 o'clock and 10:50, I went on, gone, all shows, all of the reprise, gone. That show sold out, I think faster, I think, I might be wrong here, but it was one of the fastest shows to sell out at the Met. And what a powerful time too, because this, COVID hadn't started yet. Yeah. And the whole, all the riots and stuff really hadn't started yet. So here was this, it was kind of sad because here you had this amazing moment for Black singers. And the Black opera is now not just, well done, but it's some of the most exquisite, extraordinary talent this world has on the planet. And so so that was an amazing moment for the Met. And so, the Met's not getting everything wrong. And I think that to kind of comment on that, I don't know. I can't help but wonder, Michael, is the Met just so concerned about protecting itself and its clout and it's the Met, And so I don't know. Is it protection? I don't know, but
I think like this time, seeing a lot of people or a lot of organizations who have chosen to do things that are more for the community. And you can tell that they're for the community, for the times. And so it looks, if we're going to talk about it in that way, if they're just trying to protect their image, then it's kind of like, all right, then we're getting into the shallows here about, oh, well, we don't really care about what's going out there, our connection with the community, but we care about this and how we look and like, yeah.
I will say one thing, I just got reminded of it. There was one brass quintet show they did. I saw it. There was one brass quintet show they did because I follow the principal trumpet, one of the co-principal trumpets there, that I saw one brass quintet show from my knowledge. So I will want to state that just in case anybody's watching. I know of one performance, but even if there's one, I think a lot more people should know about it. Anybody should know about it. Because like, if I had $10 laying around and they would want to give I would give them $10 because they live in New York. These families live in New York, and it's like our profession that we aspire to be like, who would not want to be a musician in the Met Orchestra or a singer on the Met stage? Like, yes, let me back up Renee Fleming because that is my girl. Like, I will do it. I can't sing, so put me deep in the choir, but I got you.
Hey, they just want voices. Okay. All of those voices are, the paycheck to be in the chorus there is phenomenal. So believe me, you're getting some real good talent but okay. So let's the matter at hand here with Maestro Levine. I think I feel I'm just as kerfuddled about it as everyone else, right? Because the man clearly lived two lives. And I think that I don't know a lot of the information. I know this. I think that if people did know about this and it was swept under the rug, shame on you. And what you should have done is stepped up and said, how can we get you help? How can we protect you so that nothing happens, or what can we do to help you, because you are too important to lose you. But apparently they felt that way, but they made the wrong choice, right? I know this. I know that he mentored a lot of people along the way and whatnot. I would say this, and I'd say this to anybody out there. My rule always is, if you are under 18, your parent is in the room, period. End of story, okay? And if I were a parent, I would be in the room. End of story, period, end of story. And I teach teenagers, and a lot of them still, when they get to be 17 and 16, does my mom still really? Yes, your mom does. Yes, your mom will be here. And so there's that. And so I just want everybody to know how to protect themselves out there. I think that's a very smart rule. It might be a bit a lot, but I think it's a rule just so everybody knows out there, because things can happen and things can be said, you know, and but in this case, you know, I'm not talking about James Levine. I'm talking about all of you.
Right.
What you guys need to remember to do. So as a parent, I would be very, you know, some people will look past a lot to make, if their kid is going to benefit from it. As a teacher, I've seen this, and it's disturbing, because is it for you or is it for the kid? What are you doing here? And so, you know, so there's that. It is hard to dismiss the fact that that man waved his hands and made some of the most, I mean, I think I will ever be able to hear Rosencavalier the same way after what he did. And every singer that has ever worked with him, you know, they'll say Jimmy was, it's just different singing with him. It's just different. He just knows where you are and just feels where you are. And if you're about to make a mistake, he's already ahead of you. He already sees that you're going to make this mistake. He already sees you're going to take this breath that you're not supposed to be taking right there. And he fixes it. And so, you know, a very talented person, a lot of very extremely talented people also suffer from, you know, other things. You know, we see a lot of people who have some mental, you know, what have you. And perhaps this is something that maybe carried over from his childhood, which is, you know, also sad. But you know, should we throw away all of our recordings? I think that was what it was. The article was called, wasn't it? What was it? Should I throw away all of my recordings of James Levine, or was that what it was called?
Oh, the genius worship must end.
No, there was another article out there that I think it said, maybe it was New York Times, that said, you know, should I throw away all of my James Levine recordings? And well, yeah, no. I mean, those artists are, it's more than one person, you know, doing all that. You know, so it is a shame. It's a stain. It's a stain on our profession. It's a stain on the Met, certainly in Boston. It's and it's ugly. And I guess I'm glad that it completely wasn't swept under the rug. I'm glad that it is out there as it is right now. And I think we've seen a lot of people in recent years take advantage of their fame. And I think it's very, very, very unfortunate, because we've seen a lot of ugliness in recent years. You know, I personally can't identify with what goes through that head, or, you know, what fame maybe does to you. I'm not sure if it's that, or if it's just you're a white male and you get away with whatever you want to because you're a white male.
Yeah. And
you know,
there's this one part of the article that really, when I read it, I got chills. And it was the part of the article, and I'll read it really quickly. It is by Ben Miller. He describes his father was a Boston Symphony Orchestra cellist, sat him down at the age of 12 to inform him about the serious rumors about the Levine being inappropriate with young boys. His father told him, don't be in the room along with him. Miller's parents told him, walk the other way if you see him coming. And that really, you know, kind of put every hair on my body up. That at the age of 12, and I related this back to the black talk that I had with my parents about, you know, you get pulled over by the police, this and that, be this and that. And here is that same, a conversation of that same caliber about a man. And it's just disgusting. And here we go. This article also talks about when he died, the Met just put up everything about him. And that's what kind of fueled our topic about pay your artists, because they kind of put up this whole thing about Levine and everything. But here you have struggling artists here, they still are struggling right now.
What was the settlement, I believe?
The settlement. So later in the article, it talks about how Levine actually had sued the Met after they tied any type of ties with him, and he walked away with $3.5 million from that lawsuit that the Met had to pay him. because
So
they spoke on his name.
yeah, and so what I'm just like you were talking about, like you said, a cellist telling their son or daughter, whatever. That's talking about their boss. So this is like it is happening. People know it, even if it's just a rumor. Even if it's just a rumor, that's my like. Of course, James Levine, awful person, should not have been covered up that long. That's my thing. How long was it covered up by these grand organizations that we hold in regards that he was able to do this? But because he walked out on stage and I will agree, he made amazing music, wonderful music. But because he could do that one thing, he could ruin X amount of lives. It was like a lot of other amazing pop culture figures who could do these amazing things, but ruin X amount of lives that I think everybody listening and everybody on the podcast knows, but we will not name.
Because we don't want
okay. Yeah. Two things. I mean, well, there's one. First of all, I mean, I feel like it's warranted to say, if James Levine were a black man or a Mexican man, I'm not going to finish that statement. I don't need to finish that statement.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine the names that would have been thrown out there? And do you think that a black man would have walked away with a $3.5 million settlement?
He wouldn't have lasted that long.
He wouldn't have got
first.
Probably they wouldn't have gotten there. Yes, of course. Yeah. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of, remember in the gymnastics world, there was that one doctor that was abusing girls.
Yes.
And he was, apparently this unbelievable doctor that was the best at, and so he got away with this because he was such an amazing doctor. And so, Michael, to that, I say, there are other doctors.
Truly.
There are a lot of people who know how to wave a fancy stick in front of a lot of artsy-fartsy musicians, okay? And I don't care how, yes, you're amazing, that's great, but you've done something. And we've got other people who can do your job. Everybody can be replaced, okay?
That's something that me and Anthony talk about quite often.
You can't just be an employee in any situation. You can't just be an employee. You have to be a human being that's doing the right thing by others all the time. If you're working at McDonald's or you're on the conducting the Met Orchestra, you know what I mean? And so if a teacher did that, they would be fired in -3 seconds.
Yep. Like
for abusing children. But if this, if all these allegations are true, if a high school teacher abused a child, they would be fired, never allowed to ever have a license again, and will register as a sex offender.
Yes.
In every neighborhood, you know what I mean? Okay. But James Levine, if this is true and there are children, if this person does that.
Right.
I think a reoccurring theme, and I think Lauren's about to talk about this, I'll segue into hers, hopefully. A reoccurring theme we've talked about on Relative Pitch almost every episode is this pedestal that we put people on. We got to knock it out because everybody puts on their clothes the same way. Everybody wakes up the same way. Everybody brushes their teeth, hopefully, the same way. And everybody goes to bed. And I'm going to let Lauren say what she was about to say.
Yeah, we're going through Wagnerism by Alex Ross, within the podcast. And throughout that entire series, it's been a question of it's like, should we hold this music up to that? Knowing the past and if we dig back deep enough with almost anyone, I think we can find something negative that they've said or done. But at the same time, when you're putting this person up on such and the Boston Globe says it perfectly, era of genius worship must end with James Levine. And it is genius worship. It's saying, nothing can take this person down. Yes, it can. First of all, I don't care how good you are at waving a stick or singing or playing an instrument or being a doctor or whatever. I don't care. If you're not a good human being and you don't have morals, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to look at you just as anyone else who would have committed said crime or harassment or whatever. And so these people, my main thing is whenever, and I think this is a lot of people were saying whenever James Levine passed away, seeing people go, oh, the world is crying, we are aching, the losses of Maestro and all this. I'm like, no, I hope that those families of those kids are celebrating. I hope the kids have some type feeling of relief. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Because I'm centralizing now the victims of what's happened instead of centralizing, oh, well, let's not talk about it. He had some skeletons in it. No, he hurt people. He hurt people. And so this idea of like, and listen, it's cool if they want to keep the recordings up. If we want to say those are the best recordings of those things, cool. The company and the performer should not have to suffer for said person. Now, do they deserve karma coming back for them for pushing those allegations down and paying him off and doing all those things that did nothing to help the victims of the situation? Yeah, they deserve that. So whatever's coming to them, you what is it, you reap what you sow. So there you go. But it's just I'm sick of this putting someone up so high and just fawning and gushing, and when it's like when they die it's like, okay, well, let's forget about what they did. No, let's not forget what they did, because if you want to keep those recordings alive, all their performances alive, you're going to keep all the negative things that happen alive as well.
And the victims, I think, should be the recipients of his royalties.
Yep.
Absolutely.
100%.
Until and their children should be received, and their children's children.
Yeah.
And you know, because he's dead. So
yeah.
I feel like
putting it out into the universe. Think about it, people. Go back to
smart.
sports.
And I think what Lauren just said, the relief they probably felt on March 8th, I think is when it happened. The relief they probably felt was like, oh my God. He left the world, so there's like, I feel like there's a weight off. They're like, oh my, I don't have to look over my back, even though he's not there. I don't have to look over my back anymore.
Yeah.
Or like, and it's just like, and I just read on here, nearly 40 years.
Yeah. At the beginning of his career, he had what they call Levinites, which were young boys who did
Wagner,
whatever his will was. And that right there, the fact that he had a modern day harem of young boys that did whatever he asked them to do, is just disgusting. It's disgusting. But I feel like we could talk about Mr. Levine and all of his deeds for a very long time. And I think exactly what we just said. I'm so glad. I hope that the victims of all of this have some type of relief. And please, can we get somebody on the call to be like, these people need
royalties,
please.
Yeah, pay my people their money, what they're due.
That is.
And I think that it's incumbent upon all music educators out there right now, because communication is key, right?
Yes.
We have to know what it is in order to know how to protect ourselves from it.
Pull the rug up.
And so it is completely okay for every band teacher, voice teacher to say to their students, private lessons are a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know that people can take advantage of you. And I think your mom or your dad needs to be in the room. Now I do it not only for my protection, but I want mom and dad to know what they're paying for. You know, you're spending money on me. I want you to see the product, right? Yeah. But it's also, you know, it's a practice that we need to be doing. Everyone needs to be doing this. I would never, ever be in a room with somebody under 18 years old. Never, by just the two of us. Never. And nor should anybody else. You know what I mean? Because I just think this, but it's incumbent upon us as music teachers to say this is a thing, unfortunately. And you need to know, and if it does happen to you, you need to tell me. I want to know. And if you're ashamed or you're embarrassed or you're scared, I understand that, but I need to know. You must tell me, you know, and because people love you and they don't want this to happen to you.
Yep.
It shouldn't happen to you. So if it does, you have to tell me so that it doesn't happen to somebody else. And so when we're all talking about this stuff and we're not saying the word, you know, we're not afraid to say the word molest. We're not afraid to say take advantage of. We're not afraid of those words. Then we've got control a little bit better, right? Communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, and everyone watching this, like that, I mean, whether you're an educator or in a situation yourself, like reach out to someone, say, you know, and yeah, as educators, I feel like it is a responsibility to go, yeah, my kids need to understand that there are situations where someone who's going to be in a higher position than you, you're going to feel like you have to respect them. Like, oh, I don't know if I should say anything. You say something.
And
you know?
even if something hasn't happened, but there is messages and vibes that you do not like, you have all the right, if you're paying for private lessons, you have all the right to have whoever you want in there or record it. Like,
record it. Yes.
You have all the right. Like, I mean, I know all my lessons I take, I record it because I like to go back and listen.
Well, you have every musician should be doing that.
Exactly. Yeah. But you have the right to record. You have the right to have anybody in that room. If you are paying someone, it's like in college. If you pay for your college, it should be exactly the experience you want. And if you're not getting that, you should say something about it or get help. And I will help you if I need to. So will Lauren. So will Anthony. Yeah. Anybody will help you.
Yeah. And we're living now in this time of cancel culture, aren't we? Isn't that a fun word that we've that has 100,000 meanings in it? Right. And to that I say, well, you know what? Some people need to be canceled. Okay?
Yeah.
Some people need to be canceled. I have friends, male and female, who have been in situations with conductors or directors, or basically people who can make or break them, right? And I have my list of names of people that I know have acted inappropriately with my friends, male and female, I want to add. And what do when somebody, your career is, you know, in there, or at least it feels like it's in their hands. And so we have to start spreading the message of call it out, call out culture. You know what I mean? I don't care how good you are at waving that fancy stick. We can find someone else. There are 1,000,001 brilliant 30-year-old conductors who were chomping at the bit to have that job and wouldn't hurt people.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care how good you are at it. I can find somebody who's good at it and doesn't hurt people.
Exactly.
So calling it out and you know, it's a thing. And so, you know, there's a lot of craziness right now. I wish you guys could see my Facebook feed.
Oh my God. I think Facebook just needs to be eliminated at this point.
But I think this was such a great conversation to have. All of this we talked about today has been so good. First of all, thank you so much, Professor Wedge, for agreeing to be on our podcast.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Have these open conversations. It's so good seeing you. I haven't seen you in so long since I've graduated. So it is so good to see you again. But thank you so much for.
You guys got to have me come down to that high school. I will drive down there.
Ooh.
Have me come visit.
Come on, come down.
You guys have a good choir program?
We working.
Hey, let me help you.
There we go. There we go.
I heard the choir director's a work in progress, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
I heard he can't wait
have me down there and let me give the choir director a day off.
I'll take it. Well, thank you so much, Professor Wedge, and I hope everybody enjoyed our episode. Please follow all the links below to all of our social media. Please like, comment, share, everything like that. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Go Owls!
Yes.